Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another edition of User Delight with Microsoft Technology. Now, what we're going to do here is to create a very simple Power App. And the assumption here is that you've gone through maybe a course or two on Power Platform, or perhaps taken an online course, so on and so forth, that you have some kind of familiarity with what Power Apps is, what an environment is, what Dataverse is, so on and so forth. And this is more of a refresher for you to quickly sort of, come up to speed in case, you've forgotten certain aspects. So what we're going to do is we are going to use Microsoft Dataverse, which is essentially a database management system to have the underlying data source to your application. Okay, so I'm in my environment right now, and what I do is on Power Apps, I'm going to go in and click on tables, right? And then when I click on tables here, I'm actually going to go over to custom tables because I want to create my own table, right? So then under custom tables, I'm going to actually go in and add a new table, and I'm going to call this master country. So we're basically just going to build an application to capture sales by country by product. Okay, so I have a master table here, and I'm going to basically call this, the table as a master country, and the primary column here is going to be the name of the country, which is fair enough, and I'm going to save this table, right? So a new table. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to create another table that is going to capture the sales transactions and is basically going to have a lookup column that would look up the country from the master country. Okay, so now that this table is done, it's just going to have one column of entries basically capturing the countries. Okay, and we'll use the app to populate this. We'll not actually populate it manually here in Dataverse. Okay, so I'm going to click back on tables here, and then I'm going to basically go in and create a new custom table. I'm going to call this a new table, and then I'm going to basically say transaction sales orders, and the primary column here is going to be a sales order number, let's say. Okay, and I'm going to basically go save this. The idea here is that the primary column in this case is basically going to be a auto number. So as the sales orders keep coming in, it's going to increment up. Okay, so I'm going to go over to columns here, and I'm going to go over to my sales order column. Where is my sales order column? There it is. And I'm going to click on this. This is my primary column. It was a single line of text as I created it, and then I'm going to change it to an auto number that actually increments. And the auto number type I'm going to say is custom, and it's got a sequence of 4 here, starting from 1000. The seed value here, I could basically say 1, so it starts from 1, let us say. And then I'm going to prefix this here with sales order, right? So it's basically going to say sales order 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Okay, and once I have this, I'm going to save this column. So this is a custom auto number column as a primary column. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and now my base for the transaction table is done. I'm going to add another column here, and in this case I'm going to call this country, if I can spell it right. And here I'm going to basically use a lookup, right? So I'm going to look up the master country to pull whichever country it is that I want to actually record the sales on, right? And then I'm going to say the related table here is going to be master and country. There is my master country, and I'm going to actually save this particular column. I'll add another column, yet another column, and call this maybe a product column, and I'm going to actually add choices. So if I were to go over to my choices here within Dataverse, I can define my own choice, and I've done this before. I have something called product, if I'm not right here, if I'm not wrong here, sorry, and let me see, yeah, there it is, right? Products. So this is a choice that I've actually gone in and created. I've added three choices, product A, B, and C, and we'll use this within our transaction sales order table, right? So we'll go back to tables, and then we will go to custom tables. We'll click on our transaction sales order table, and then we'll add a new column here, new column, and then this is going to be product, the product column, and I'm going to basically go over here and say it is a choice column up here, and then it is basically going to get the sync with the product column. So I'm literally going to, right there it is, products, and then the default choice, let us say, is product A, okay? And I'm going to save this. Now we have our master table done, and we have our transaction table done. Now, of course, the master table doesn't have any entries, so we'll have to go populate it. I mean, that's not going to take too much time. So we are ready to start our application, okay? So now I'm going to go to apps, and I'm basically going to select a new Canvas app for my type of app. And Canvas app, as you folks know, it is your idea on your terms that you can bring to bear on a time frame of your choosing. So I'm basically going to say simple Power App on Dataverse. Okay, simple Power App on Dataverse. I'm going to select a tablet format because on the one hand, on the one side of the screen, I can have my form. On the other side, I can have a table so that any entries that I actually make in the form, I can actually see as a user in my table, right? And if I want to do any kind of editing or deletion, it is very easy to do, right? So I'm going to select that. I'm going to say, go create my application. So this takes me over to the Power App Studio, much like Michelangelo Studio. And there it is. I'm going to say skip. And here is my canvas in which I can build my application. And once again, for folks to refresh your memories, basically we have the tree view in which you have all your controls, much like a tree. Basically, you're building your, the tree has got roots, so essentially screens basically anchor your application, and then you add controls, much like a stem, and in the branches, you could add forms to input data, data tables to visualize data, so on and so forth. Okay, so in my first screen, and I'm not going to beautify this, you could go and basically identify yourself. Well, let's actually do it. So I'm just going to say maybe add a text label here, and then I'm going to make this bigger, like so, horizontally full screen, and then vertically make it 100 units, let us say. And I'm going to go down and make, I'm going to actually go up, make the maybe 28 units as the size of the text, center this, and up here in text I can basically call this my first simple application. Okay, so there it is. And then I'm going to basically make the background blue, the fonts white, right? And then I'm just going to copy this, Control C, Control V, and I'm going to pull this down, remove this text here, and this is where what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this, let us say 17 or so, and change the background a little bit, perhaps something like so, and make this maybe smaller, maybe 45 units. This is going to be my footer, and I am going to, in addition to this, I'm going to insert a timer. I'll tell you why really shortly. I'm going to insert a timer, put the timer all the way down here. The duration is literally going to be just 1 second. And at the end of every second, what I'm going to do is on the timer end, I'm going to actually add a function. I'm going to say set TMR, which is my timer, and that is equal to a function called now that gives me the current date and time. And the reason why I've put it on a timer every second is the now function doesn't automatically actually update. It gives you the current date and time. However, when you put it on a timer of a duration 1 second, at the end of every second, it updates, now updates, and then gets stored in a variable called TMR. And in order for you to capture variables within Power Apps, a global variable especially, you use the set function, you give it a name, and you actually have the formula or the function, right? So with this, now I'm ready. So what I'm going to do is in this footer, I'm going to go ahead and in the text box, I'm going to say, give me the user. I'll use the user function that gives me the ability to add email. We went through this, we have gone through this in class, so this shouldn't be any kind of a surprise. And I'm going to actually add a little bit of a space, and I'm going to use the timer function, TMR, right? So right now it's blank, but then if I play this app, and then I'm going to actually go ahead and auto start this as well. I'm going to say auto start and then repeat, and I'm going to also say I don't want this to be visible, right? So if I play this now, this goes away and gives me the time, and I'll keep updating the time because after every second, the timer is going to actually get recalculated. Okay, all right. So I'm done with the footer here. I'm done with the header. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to maybe insert an image here, and then go put the image on the right hand side here and call this user image, so it actually shows folks as to who's actually logged in, right? Just as a verification. There's my user image. Maybe I'll also add another label here, Control C, Control V, and then take out the text here and then make this perhaps the height just about 3 units or something thereabouts, maybe 4 something. And then I'm going to actually put this right below the header, so it actually looks a little elegant, okay? So once I have this, I'm actually ready. And by the way, it is very important to go rename all this, so I can basically go say screen, SCN is a short form for screen, and I can say screen underscore login. So this is my login screen. This guy is my top, LBL is a label, and I'll call this top divider. Then the image here is IMG, and it is a user image, right? And it's also good to identify the screen name here. So I'll say SL as like login screen, right? Divider underscore SL. And then this is my timer. I'm just going to say TMR underscore SL. This label here is my footer. So I'll say LBL footer underscore SL, and then finally I've got my header here. I'll just go say LBL underscore header underscore SL because it belongs to the login screen. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert 2 buttons over here, and I'll tell you why really quickly. Is I'll add a button in the center like so. Okay, and add yet another button right by the side of it. You can beautify this if you want, but I'm just showing you in the interest of time, just a couple buttons. So the one button's basically gonna, on select, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually let's come to this. I'm just gonna name these buttons first. I'm gonna call this button enter master data. Right, master data, and then this gives you the ability to enter countries. And then I'm going to add another one over here, and then basically say enter sales transactions. Okay, so one enters sales transactions. Here I should basically say master data / countries, right? So on the one hand, we actually capture the master data, the countries. On the other hand, we basically go ahead and enter our sales transactions. Okay, so I'm going to actually move this over a little bit so it actually doesn't look, okay, so there you go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally duplicate the screen. I'm going to say duplicate screen, and then this screen I'm going to use I'm going to act, this is going to be my master, right? This is the master information that I capture. And then I've got two buttons here. I'm going to leave the buttons alone. So the divider, etc. is fine. I'm going to move these buttons up here, right? I'm going to move these buttons up here. In fact, I should go back and rename these buttons here as well. So let's actually do that. So I'm going to call this btn underscore sales sales and underscore sl login screen, and then btn underscore master underscore sl. Okay, so these are done. So in my master screen, so first things first, I'm going to basically go ahead and I'm going to add data here. You see this data icon, you know this from before. So I'm going to actually search for master, and there's my master country, and that's been added. And I'm going to also add master transactions, or sorry, transaction sales orders, transaction sales orders. So I've got both my tables. I've got my master table and I've got my transactions table. Okay. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert basically an editable form, and then move the form over to the right hand side like so. Okay, move it to the right like so, maybe half the screen, somewhere thereabouts, you know, and then bring it down a little bit. On the right hand side, I'm going to select one single column, and I'm going to actually say master countries. So this is going to populate. Let me actually edit fields here. I'm going to remove the right, the created on. That's good enough. All I want to capture is basically just the country here, right? So this is it. And then what I'm going to do out here again is going to say insert, and I'm going to search for data table. So whatever country I enter in my form, I just want to be able to make sure that the database actually captures it. So there is my table. And in this table, I'm again going to select master countries, and you know, lo and behold, it actually shows me which country, you know, that I've actually input and what date, so on and so forth, right? So these buttons now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these over, Control C, Control V, and then another one, right? So what these buttons are going to do is, we'll get there in a second. Kindly give me just a minute to modify these, and I'm just gonna make sure that they're kind of symmetric a little bit. And you can beautify these, you know, the idea here is not about beautification, but more in terms of getting the functions right. So here I'm gonna say new country, right? This button's gonna actually capture new countries, and I'm gonna, in the formula bar, say new form, and what my name of the form is form 1. And then in this one, I'm going to basically say save and view data. Okay. So, and here I'm going to go ahead and say submit form, which allows me to submit information that is in the form, reset the form. And in this case, you may not need the reset, but I'm just going to add it as best practice. And I'm going to say view form, turn the form to its view mode, right? The form has got three modes: new, view, and edit, right? So we're going to leverage that. And then that's it here. So I'm going to go to my third button. I'm going to call this edit data, and I'm going to basically say edit form and form 1, right? Form 1. And the last one's basically going to be any deletion that you want to do. So we're going to say remove, and from my master country, I want to be able to remove whatever is selected in my data table, right? So I'll be able to view all the countries that I've entered into the data table here. So whatever is selected here, when I click this button, I want that to be removed, okay? So I think by and large we are all set. So the only things we need to do is in this form 1, the data source is the master country. However, the line item that actually shows up, I want it to be per whatever is in data table 1. Whatever line item is actually selected in data table 1 is what I want it to show here upon, let us say, editing data, right? So I'm actually ready here. The only things I need to do is just rename this. I'll say button delete, and then SM. Then this is going to be btn underscore edit. Did I get two? Edit and SM, right? So that's that. This is data table master, okay? And I'm going to call this form master SM. So I should do the SM underscore here as well. So these are all best practices to name the the tables appropriately. So this one is a save btn underscore save underscore SM. This guy is btn new underscore SM. This is top divider SM image SM. See, that's the beauty of actually using a template of sorts, okay? Uh, and just rename them so that it doesn't create any confusion. So now we are all set. The only other thing I'll actually do is I'm going to go over to my login screen, and out here I'm going to basically, when I click this button, I would like to navigate over to the master screen, and I would like it to sort of like fade in much like a what do you call a PowerPoint presentation, okay? So that's done. So I'm going to go over here, and then I'm also going to insert a home icon here. So I'm going to put this icon up here and make this white so it's actually visible, and perhaps add a little bit of a padding so it looks a little elegant. And there you go. And what I'm going to say is when I click on this, navigate back to the login screen and screen transition dot fade, so fade into the screen. Okay, so now we are actually ready to capture some information. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to say new country. I'm going to actually say Singapore here, and then save and view this. So this data should now get saved, and the form is in a view mode, so no one's going to be able to edit this, right? So I'm going to add a new country again. I'm going to say Philippines, I believe, yes, and save this. New country again, Thailand, and save this. Then go ahead and add Malaysia and save, so on and so forth, right? And if I want to basically just delete this information, I mean, if I want to edit it, I can say edit and say instead of Malaysia, I can say Indonesia and save this information. So this gets overwritten. And then, if you want to delete this, well, that's another thing that we need to do is to basically go change the name of this to delete data, right? Delete data, yeah, capital D, fine. So if I were to now play this, and I've selected Indonesia information, if I say delete it, that row kind of goes away. So I'll add it right back. So I'm going to say Malaysia and save this. Okay, good enough, right? So once I have this now, as you can see, it is very simple to enter new information, save it and view it. So, the form is in a view mode. If you want to edit it, you click on that particular line item, and because you've got the form mapped to whatever is selected in the data table, it shows that, and you can edit it or delete it, okay? So once we are done with this, let us actually replicate this over, okay? So duplicate screen, and we'll call this screen the transaction screen. This is where we actually enter our sales transactions. So I'm going to call this SCN transactions, right? And then the icon here is going to be ICN underscore screen transaction. Then all the rest, basically, I'm just going to say ST for all the buttons, because the buttons remain the same. The master table too, I'm just going to say ST, the form, ST as well. We're just going to change the data source. That's about it, and rename everything here to ST. Okay, I'll just speed this up in the video as well, so you don't have to watch me, rename all of these things. Okay, and there you go, ST. All right, last one here. Okay, so now that the renaming has been done, what we need to do is to basically go to the form here, this form, and then we are going to actually select transaction sales orders. And then we're going to replace the cards because we want to capture the sales transactions in this case. So I'm going to say edit fields. I'm going to actually remove this created on, right? I'm going to remove, and I'm going to add. So we need the country, then we need, I believe, the product, and then do we have anything else here? I think we need to capture the sales amount, which we don't have here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, kind of give me a second, I'm going to go back to my Power Apps and to my columns in my transaction, and I'm going to add a column to capture the sales, which oddly I missed. Okay, so I'm going to say Power Apps again. So this goes over and opens my Power Apps. I'm going to remove this, and while it actually comes up, is there anything else that I need to add? I'm just going to add country, MNOP. I'm going to add product for now, and then we'll come back and add. And I don't think the sales order we need it to be visible because the sales order is an auto number, so we don't even need that. And let's see what this error is over here. So this is basically saying, okay, so this is the data table. Okay, so we'll get there. We're gonna basically go click on this data table master, and then we are going to point this to transaction sales orders, repeat, replace columns, so that is fine. And then over here we're going to edit this, created on is fine, we are going to actually add country, MNOP, we're going to add product, right? So we're going to have all these things here, and then out here in this button we're just going to say remove from transaction sales orders, whatever is selected in the data. So the rest should be fine. From master, right? The rest should be fine. Okay. Now in my Power Apps, I'm gonna go over to Dataverse and go to tables, and I'm going to go to custom tables to transaction sales order, and takes about a minute for this to load, and go to custom, and I'm going to go to transaction sales orders, which should be down here, and I'm going to go to new here and add a, for some bizarre reason it's taking a little bit of, so I'm going to add a new column here, and I'm going to call this column sales amount, right? Sales amount, and I'm going to basically say this is a number and this is a decimal number, and just going to save this. Okay, so this is where we're actually going to capture our sales, and it takes just a 15 seconds for it to, there you go. So I'm going to go over to my data source here and then just refresh this. Okay, so we are refreshing the data source. So go back to the tree view, go back to the form, edit this form, add my sales amount, right? So I've got my sales amount here, and then go over to my data table here as well, and then edit this and add my sales amount to the data table as well. And that's about all we need to do, right? So we're all set now. So we're all set to enter data. So new country, new here we should say new sales, then save and view sales, edit, so on and so forth, right? So this is absolutely fine. So the only other thing is if I click on this, navigate back to the screen, so that's good. On the login screen, I'm going to go basically say navigate, and if I want to navigate over to the transaction screens, and then transition.fade. So my application is actually complete. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to publish this application, right? So there you go. As soon as it's actually saved, go publish this. So this creates the first version of my application. So now if I play this, I've already entered master data. So I've got Singapore, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia. If I say new country, so maybe enter Indonesia as well, save and view data. So now all my, I should edit this, isn't it? Indonesia, INDON, right? And then save this. So I've got my drop downs now, in my master table. These are all my primary keys, right? So I click back and I'm ready to enter my sales, right? So if I go over here, the other thing I should also do here is maybe add an icon to refresh my database. So I'm going to actually say data and then add my data icon. Oops. I'll say data, and there is my data icon, and then I'm going to put it right next to the home icon over here, and I'm going to basically make this white so we can see this. There you go, like so. Add a little bit of padding for it to look a little elegant. And what I'm going to say here is refresh, refresh, and refresh the database, right? That's about it. And I could also refresh, two commands, refresh the master countries as well, okay? So if I play this now, and click on this, now both my, what do you call, the master countries as well as my transaction is going to be refreshed. And then if I say new sales here, so I'm going to go, see now my Indonesia's come in. So I'm going to say Singapore, the product is product A. The sales amount, let us say, is 1,000. So I'm going to save and view this data. So there you go, this has been saved. Now you notice one thing. As this saves the data to the transactions table in Dataverse, it is actually giving me the ID of the country, which I don't want. What I want is the country name. So I'm going to go back to my data table here and then open this and go to the country column, and I'm going to say I don't want master country. What I want here is master country dot name, right? So I want the name of the country. There you go, Singapore, right? So now I can go basically add new sales. Once again, select Philippines, select product B, and then say 500 and save this data. Same logic, right? And if I click on this guy and if I edit this and let's say it's not 500, it's 550, no problem. So I'm going to be able to go edit this data, and that's 550. Add new sales, again select like Thailand, let us say, and you can actually see the orders incrementing 1, 2, so on and so forth, right? So product C, and I'm going to say maybe this is 450 and save this data. There you go, right? And if I want to delete this data, if I say delete, and that data goes away, right? I trust this gives you an example as to how to set up your master table and transaction table by doing the lookups in Dataverse, how to set up choice columns. As an example, you can set up choices outside and consume it within your transaction table. And then once you're, and the other thing is in your transaction table, your primary column, you can set it up as an auto number, right? Like here, where, the numbers keep updating, the sales orders just keep updating as you go along, right? So once you set that up, you go into Power Apps, you're going to go into your studio, and then you basically have one screen that acts as a template. So you have your header, right? Your header, and then your footer. And to get the footer right, basically what you could do, I'm going to make this a little smaller, right? So to get your footer, what you could actually do is you could add a variable and capture the time to increment the time as you go along, and then use that in the footer. And once you have the screen ready, you replicate the screen. So you have a login screen, right? Your login screen, let's just reiterate this. You've got your login screen where you can enter the master data like so, right? And in this case, the form is basically going to point to the master so that you can enter, increment your whatever the master data is, whether it's your country, business unit, so on and so forth. And then once you enter the data, you can visualize it in the data table. And if you want to edit this data, you can pick a particular line in the data table and edit it. And if you want to delete it, do the same thing, right? So that sets up your masters. Once the masters are done, basically you can go ahead and enter sales transactions, right? Like how we have actually entered, okay? So this format of actually having master transactions and then having the ability to enter data on the one side and being able to view the data that you've actually entered on the other side keeps getting repeated over and over and over again. Whether you add images to your app, whether you add 3D models to your app, it doesn't matter. The concept is about the same, right? And then to look at images and so on and so forth, I have got videos for you on YouTube. So if I were to go to videos and here's my channel, I can go to your videos, here, and then it basically shows me all my videos here in my studio. So kindly do subscribe to my channel. Is called Sanjiv Venkatram. So kindly do you search for Sanjiv and it'll show up here. And then down below, I've gone and created videos here to showcase how you could use Azure Data Lake to capture images, and how you could get links to that you can, and secure links that you could use in your applications. And then if you want to use barcodes, you could do that as well. So there are a couple videos here that showcase that. And then once you've got these two, you could just create applications like we just did, which could host barcodes and which could host, let's say, images and so on and so forth. That's a little bit more advanced, but I just wanted to get this base video done for your reference. All right. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you here on more videos. Thank you, folks. Cheers.